There are moments in life that cannot be explained, moments when the air changes, moments when your spirit feels restless, moments when your heart begins beating differently, even before your eyes see anything. This message is one of those moments. You were not sent here by accident. You clicked on this video because heaven has been trying to reach you. And tonight, God wants you to know something that may change everything. Something is coming. And according to the Spirit, you will feel it exactly 24 hours before it happens. Not because you are lucky, not because you are smarter than everyone else, but because you are chosen. You have suffered too deeply to be ordinary. You have cried too many hidden tears to be forgotten. You have survived battles that should have destroyed your mind. And now heaven is preparing to warn you before the shift arrives. Listen carefully, because what you are about to hear was meant for your soul. Narrator, there is a reason your spirit has felt different lately. A reason you have felt disconnected from certain people. A reason old places no longer feel familiar. A reason your nights have become heavier. You thought it was exhaustion. You thought maybe you were losing motivation. You thought maybe the world had simply become colder. But the truth is deeper than that. God has been separating you, not to punish you, not to abandon you, but to prepare you. The chosen are never prepared in crowds. They are prepared in isolation. That loneliness you feel, that silence, that strange season where nobody understands you anymore, that is not the end of your life. That is spiritual training. Because before God changes your future, He changes your spirit. And before heaven releases a blessing, it often releases a warning. Many people will walk into the next season blindly, but not you. Because 24 hours before the moment arrives, something inside you will awaken. You will feel it. Your spirit will become unsettled. Your intuition will sharpen. Your soul will sense movement in the invisible world. And suddenly things that once confused you will become clear. The betrayal, the delays, the rejection, the waiting. You thought people abandoned you because you were not enough. But God says they left because they could not go where you are going. Some people were assignments, others were distractions, and some were tests disguised as love. The chosen always lose people before elevation, because not everybody can survive the atmosphere of destiny. Some people only knew the broken version of you. They laughed while you were bleeding, ignored you while you were struggling, doubted you while you were praying, but they never saw what heaven placed inside your spirit. They only saw your wounds. God saw your purpose. And now the same pain that almost destroyed you is becoming the fire that transforms you. Do you know why your attacks became heavier? Because darkness attacks people carrying light. The enemy does not waste energy on empty souls. The pressure on your life is proof that something powerful is inside you. You were never weak. You were being refined. Every sleepless night refined you. Every betrayal refined you. Every disappointment refined you. Every silent prayer refined you. And now your spirit is becoming sensitive to divine timing. That is why you can no longer ignore certain feelings. That is why your soul suddenly knows when energy changes. That is why some rooms drain you instantly. That is why fake love now makes you uncomfortable. You are awakening. And heaven says this next sign will happen exactly before the shift arrives. 24 hours before it happens, you will feel separation, a strange emotional distance. People who once contacted you constantly may suddenly become silent. The world around you may feel unusually still. Do not panic. Silence often comes before divine movement. When God is about to move mountains, He quiets distractions. And during those final hours, your spirit may feel emotional. You may cry unexpectedly. You may remember old memories. You may suddenly think about people from your past. Because heaven is clearing emotional weight from your soul. God is removing attachments before your next chapter begins. You cannot carry old pain into new destiny. Listen carefully. The chosen often mistake transformation for destruction, but destruction removes. Transformation rebuilds, and God has not been destroying you. He has been rebuilding you in secret. The world sees your silence. Heaven sees your preparation. The world sees delay. Heaven sees divine timing. The world sees isolation. Heaven sees protection. There are people who would have destroyed your purpose if God allowed them to stay close. That is why certain relationships collapsed. That is why certain doors shut unexpectedly. That is why some prayers were delayed. Because God was protecting your future from people who only loved the temporary version of you. But now the hour is changing, and before it happens, heaven will warn you. You will feel an unusual peace, not because life suddenly becomes perfect, but because your spirit finally understands that God never abandoned you. You survived every attack for a reason. You survived the betrayal. You survived the heartbreak. You survived the nights nobody checked on you. You survived the silent battles nobody knew about. And the fact that you are still standing means heaven still has a plan for your life. Somebody listening to this almost gave up recently. You smiled in front of people while silently fighting darkness. You told everybody you were fine while your spirit was exhausted. But God says this: the reason you could not quit is because your destiny is bigger than your pain. You were chosen before people rejected you. Chosen before they misunderstood you. Chosen before they betrayed you. And what is coming next will prove that every lonely season had purpose. The shift will not only change your situation, it will change your identity. You are about to stop seeing yourself as broken. You are about to realize that everything you survived built spiritual strength. The enemy wanted your suffering to make you bitter. God used your suffering to make you powerful. That is why your discernment became sharper. That is why your heart became wiser. That is why your soul no longer chases shallow things. You are changing. And not everybody will understand this new version of you. Some people preferred you weak. Some people preferred you insecure. Some people preferred when you doubted yourself, because wounded people are easier to control. But heaven is healing your mind. Heaven is restoring your spirit. Heaven is awakening your authority. And once the chosen discover who they truly are, darkness becomes afraid. That is why attacks intensified recently. The enemy sensed your breakthrough before you did. But hear this clearly. Nothing sent against you will stop what God already decided. Not betrayal, not delay, not isolation, not fear, because destiny does not depend on human approval. It depends on divine timing. And your time is approaching. 24 hours before it happens, your spirit will know. You may not understand every detail, but your soul will feel heaven moving. And when the moment arrives, suddenly everything will make sense. The waiting, the tears, the loneliness, the hidden battles. You will finally understand why God kept you separated, because ordinary people could never carry the assignment placed on your life. You were built differently. That is why you survived things that broke others. The chosen carry unusual strength, not because life is easy for them, but because heaven refuses to let them die before purpose is fulfilled. So if you are hearing this message tonight, do not fear the silence. Do not fear the waiting. Do not fear the strange feeling in your spirit. Something is shifting. And heaven says this warning found you because you are not forgotten. You are being prepared. Prepared for elevation. Prepared for revelation. Prepared for transformation. And when it finally happens, people who doubted your future will witness the power of divine timing. Because what God is about to do in your life, no human being will be able to explain. Narrator, there is a moment before destiny changes, when heaven becomes quiet, not empty, not absent, quiet. And most people misunderstand this silence. They think God left. They think nothing is happening. They think the delay means denial, but the chosen know something deeper. Silence is often the final preparation before divine movement. Think about the storm before thunder shakes the sky. There is tension in the atmosphere. Birds disappear. The wind changes. The air feels different. Creation senses what is coming before people do. And in the same way, your spirit senses movement before your eyes can see it. That is why the chosen experience unusual emotions before life changes. A restless feeling, a heavy silence, a mysterious pull away from old environments. You begin feeling disconnected from people you once needed. Conversations become empty. Places feel unfamiliar. Even entertainment loses meaning. And you start wondering, what is happening to me? But this is not confusion. It is awakening. God is preparing your soul for transition, because the version of you that enters the next chapter cannot think the same way. The old mindset must die. And that process is painful. Nobody talks about how lonely transformation feels. People celebrate success, but they rarely speak about the isolation before elevation. The nights when you cry quietly, the mornings when your spirit feels tired, the moments when you question whether your prayers matter. The chosen know those moments intimately, because heaven often removes comfort before revealing purpose. And the painful truth is this: some people were never meant to stay in your future. You begged God to save relationships that heaven already marked for removal. You prayed for certain people to understand you, but God allowed distance because attachment was blocking destiny. Not everyone around you was sent to build you. Some people were sent to reveal your strength. And betrayal has a mysterious purpose. Betrayal exposes hidden truth. It shows you who celebrates your pain, who secretly competes with your spirit, who only loves you when you remain small. The chosen often discover that the people closest to them carry the deepest misunderstanding. Joseph was betrayed by his brothers before he reached the palace. David was hunted before becoming king. Jesus was betrayed before resurrection. Why? Because betrayal often comes before elevation. The enemy tries to emotionally break people who carry destiny. But every attack against the chosen becomes training. That heartbreak trained your discernment. That rejection trained your independence. That loneliness trained your faith. You thought you were falling apart. God was building spiritual endurance. And now something inside you is changing. You no longer chase validation. You no longer beg people to understand your worth. You are beginning to realize that people who are blind spiritually cannot recognize divine purpose. That is why some people misjudged you. They saw your current season. God saw your future assignment. And now heaven says this: 24 hours before the shift happens, your spirit will feel unusual clarity. Suddenly certain truths will become obvious. You will see fake love clearly. You will recognize hidden manipulation. You will sense spiritual warfare around your life. Things that confused you for years will make sense overnight, because God will remove the veil. The chosen often receive spiritual warnings before major events, not always through audible voices. sometimes through dreams, sometimes through deep intuition, sometimes through overwhelming peace, sometimes through an unexplained emotional heaviness. And people who are spiritually asleep ignore these signs. But your soul has become sensitive. That sensitivity came from suffering. Pain opened your spiritual eyes. The world tried to convince you that your sensitivity was weakness. But God says your sensitivity is discernment. You notice things others ignore. You feel energy shifts before others recognize them. You sense danger before it appears. That is not accidental. The chosen are spiritually alert, because destiny requires awareness. Imagine if God revealed your entire future at once. You would not survive the pressure, so heaven reveals destiny in pieces. One season at a time, one lesson at a time, one heartbreak at a time, and now you stand near a turning point. The strange exhaustion you feel is not random. Your spirit is transitioning. The old version of you is fading, the fearful version, the insecure version, the version addicted to approval. God is stripping away false identity. And stripping feels painful, because people become attached to versions of themselves created through survival. Some people became cold because life hurt them. Some became anxious because betrayal traumatized them. Some became silent because rejection wounded them. But healing requires release, and release often feels like grief. That is why your emotions may intensify before breakthrough. Your spirit is detoxing pain. The chosen cry differently, not because they are weak, but because their soul carries hidden battles nobody understands. You survived moments you never told anyone about. Moments when you questioned your purpose. Moments when depression whispered lies. Moments when fear sat beside your bed at night. And still, you survived. That survival was not accidental. God preserved you. There were nights the enemy expected you to quit forever. But heaven kept breathing strength into your spirit, because your assignment is unfinished. Listen carefully. The enemy attacks hardest before transition. That explains why your battles intensified recently. Confusion, fatigue, isolation, unexpected conflict, spiritual heaviness. Darkness sensed movement in your future. But God allowed the pressure because pressure reveals strength. Diamonds are created under pressure. And chosen people are forged through adversity. The world celebrates polished victories. Heaven celebrates hidden endurance. The fact that you kept praying while suffering matters. The fact that you remained kind after betrayal matters. The fact that you survived isolation without becoming evil matters, because suffering can either harden the soul or awaken it. And your soul awakened. Now heaven is preparing to reveal what the pain produced. The next chapter of your life will not look like the previous one. You are entering a season of spiritual authority. People who ignored your voice will suddenly notice your presence. People who underestimated you will wonder how you became so strong. But they did not witness the hidden process. They did not witness the nights you rebuilt yourself alone. They did not witness the tears, the prayers, the internal battles. They only see the outcome. And this is why God separated you. Isolation forced you to discover strength beyond human validation. When everybody disappeared, you learned how to hear God clearly. When people misunderstood you, you learned how to trust divine direction. When comfort vanished, you discovered spiritual endurance. The chosen are not built through comfort. They are built through refinement. And refinement changes everything. It changes your standards, your vision, your energy, your relationships. That is why some people can no longer access your spirit. Your frequency changed. You no longer entertain shallow conversations. You no longer tolerate manipulation. You no longer chase temporary attention. You are becoming intentional. And intentional people threaten darkness, because once the chosen become aware of their value, control breaks. The enemy depended on your insecurity. But God is healing your identity. That is why this message found you. To remind you that the strange feelings before the shift are not madness. They are spiritual signals. Something is approaching. And 24 hours before it happens, your soul will know. You may suddenly feel peace in chaos. You may feel emotional release. You may feel an urge to disconnect from distractions, paid attention. Heaven whispers before it moves. And this time, the whisper is finding you, because your season is changing. Narrator. People saw your silence and assumed you were defeated, but they misunderstood what happens to chosen people in hidden seasons. The chosen do not disappear because they are weak. They disappear because transformation requires privacy. There are spiritual battles that cannot be fought publicly, battles of the mind, battles of identity, battles against fear, trauma, doubt, and emotional exhaustion. And for a long time, you fought those battles alone. Nobody knew how tired your soul became. Nobody saw the nights you stared into darkness, asking God for one sign. Nobody heard the prayers you whispered while pretending to be okay, because chosen people often suffer silently, not because they enjoy pain, but because they learn early that not everybody can carry sacred emotions. Some people weaponize vulnerability, so you became quiet. You learned how to smile while bleeding internally. You learned how to encourage others while secretly exhausted. You learned how to survive emotionally without support. And eventually, survival became your lifestyle. But God never intended for survival to become your identity. You were created for more than merely enduring pain. You were created to transform through it. That is why your spirit has been restless. You are about to stop seeing yourself as broken. You are about to realize that everything you survived built spiritual strength. The enemy wanted your suffering to make you bitter. God used your suffering to make you powerful. That is why your discernment became sharper. That is why your heart became wiser. That is why your soul no longer chases shallow things. You are changing, and not everybody will understand this new version of you. Some people preferred you weak. Some people preferred you insecure. Some people preferred when you doubted yourself, because wounded people are easier to control. But heaven is healing your mind. Heaven is restoring your spirit. Heaven is awakening your authority, and once the chosen discover who they truly are, darkness becomes afraid. That is why attacks intensified recently. The enemy sensed your breakthrough before you did. But hear this clearly. Nothing sent against you will stop what God already decided, not betrayal, not delay, not isolation, not fear. Because destiny does not depend on human approval, it depends on divine timing. And your time is approaching. 24 hours before it happens, your spirit will know. You may not understand every detail, but your soul will feel heaven moving. And when the moment arrives, suddenly everything will make sense. The waiting, the tears, the loneliness, the hidden battles. You will finally understand why God kept you separated. Because ordinary people could never carry the assignment placed on your life. You were built differently. That is why you survived things that broke others. The chosen carry unusual strength, not because life is easy for them, but because heaven refuses. If this message touched your spirit, it was not coincidence. Heaven wanted this warning to find you. Remember this. the chosen are often misunderstood before they are revealed. So do not let temporary pain convince you that your story is over. God is still writing your future, and what is coming will make sense of every lonely night, every betrayal, every silent prayer. 24 hours before the shift happens, your soul will know. Stay alert, stay prayerful, stay spiritually awake, because destiny is moving closer. And before you leave this video, type these words in the comments. I am chosen for this season. Speak it with faith. Speak it with authority. Speak it like somebody who survived darkness and still carries light. And if this message found you at the right time, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and continue walking this spiritual journey with us. Because your transformation has only just begun,